I could have sworn I had some funny opener joke script written on some piece of paper around here. Now, where did I drop that? Oh, here it is. Expedition 33, it says. Expedition 33. Hello, my lovely viewers, and welcome to the 4th annual 2025 installment of PEKACHOW'S Game Awards, the only Game Awards show better than the actual Game Awards. Or probably just one of them, actually. Especially if we're talking about this year's Game Awards. Or should I say the Expedition 33 Awards, which I'm sure were not paid off by our favorite indie studio behind this AAA underdog. It was so big and greedy hogging all those awards, but thankfully, the Muppets were there to carry as usual. And I guess we also got confirmation that Mega Man's still alive. The Muppets got a little bit of help carrying the Game Awards this year. Let's go! So I guess I'm almost glad I saw it live after all, because that one, probably like 13th of it that had substance was pretty substantial. It was pretty good stuff. But Game Awards slander is not why you're here, probably, because everyone's been doing that, but the only person who can quite bring the PEKACHOW'S Game Awards this year is the guy in the name, I think, and I'm pretty sure that's me. Right? That's me. And I've been doing this for 4 years now, so you all know the drill. I pick a handful of notable games I've played this year and give them awards that may or may not be incredibly specific, and this even goes beyond just new 2025 releases too. So if you're looking for a comprehensive 2025 game overview, this isn't exactly the place for that, as I haven't exactly played each and every big, important, or acclaimed release this year, especially when you factor in this. But it's my way of closing out the year, looking back at what I've played, and sharing it with you all. And besides, these shows are just the perfect little excuse for me to yap about games I mostly don't know whether I'd ever get the chance to actually yap about in any other situation. And so, without further ado, let's get right into the awards. Our unexpected admiration award goes to Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire, which sadly can't be here right now, but shoutouts to Internet Archive. Now, if you know me, you'll know I'm not exactly a pinball guy, or more specifically, a pinball spin-off guy. You can put me in front of a real pinball table or something and I'll probably have fun for like 10 minutes tops, but if you load up a cult classic banger like Mario Pinball Land for me, I will beg and scream and cry for you to literally put anything else in that damn GBA because, void, that game is ass! You heard that? Shut up. Only real PEKACHOW'S Game Awardsers remember the lore behind that. When I don't even mess with the Kirby pinball spin-off that much, you know I've clearly got beef with this specific genre, but somehow, in a fit of boredom during my last stretch of high school this year, I found the good one. Yes, the singular good one. Probably. The original Pokemon Pinball is probably a banger too. I'll play it eventually. And also, does Kirby Brawl Ball count? I love Kirby Brawl Ball. All my homies love Kirby Brawl Ball. You love Kirby Brawl Ball, don't you guys? Yeah, we all love Kirby Brawl Ball here, right? So, what is the secret sauce in Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire that makes it stand head and shoulders above any other pinball game I've ever played? Because at first glance, this just looks like Pokemon Pinball. Because it is, but if slapping Kirby aesthetics on a pinball game doesn't magically make it amazing in my book, that definitely shouldn't be why this one clicked, even if the incorporation of the Pokemon into the table designs does really stimulate my brain in a way no pinball game has ever really done for me. It's awesome. But what really made the game click for me was its tasteful blending of pinball elements with those of its own franchise, because this game is all about catching Pokemon, not unlike what you'd be doing in your average Pokemon game, but it's translated into a pinball setting to near perfection. The game just has this endlessly addicting loop of rolling this location wheel to send you to different biomes and stuff, each with their own unique Pokemon spawns you can trigger by looping your table of choice, complete with some eggs to hatch on the side, which gives you some more unique Pokemon to find, on top of evolution even being possible, which allows you to evolve any Pokemon you've caught on your current run. And all of this combined with the fact that the whole ass Ruby and Sapphire Pokédex is present, constantly keeping track of what you've caught across any and all of your runs, just gives Pinball RS this sense of focus beyond just endlessly grinding for a high score that really reeled me in. So much so that it even got me into high score grinding because you get points for doing all this stuff as well, so It's interesting how that turned out. It turned me into a pinball tryhard, if you can believe it. When you top it all off with these fun, almost boss battle-like minigames that break up the regular gameplay loop, I especially like the Kecleon one, that's a banger. The differences between the game's various tables, and a whole load of other almost secret things like legendary encounters and the various ways all of those work, you've just got yourself an excellent little pinball game I'm not exactly sure what else to say about. It's not without its little frustrations here and there. I mean, it is a pinball game, so you really only have that much control over what you're doing. But once you really get the hang of it and nail the physics, it becomes a blast, especially whenever you just enter this flow state of hitting all your movements perfectly. It's just so good. So thank you, Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire, for proving to me that pinball spin-off games can be something other than mediocre, annoying cash grabs. And also for getting me through that slog of a life management class I had in the morning earlier this year. I don't know how exactly to pay taxes when that time comes, but at least I can say I completed my Pinball RS Pokédex. That's cool, right? That's awesome. I'm so cooked. Also, shoutouts to Internet Archive once again. Thank you, Internet Archive. Savior to anyone and everyone in school who doesn't have it blocked on their school Chromebook. Love you, Internet Archive. Love you. Our Danny DeVito I Get It GIF award goes to Donkey Kong Bonanza. Donkey Kong Bonanza is a game I hopped on later than mostly because ever since I got my Switch 2, there was a gradual trickle of games coming out that I wanted to pick up, and I only had so much money to blow on, what, $70, $80 games? Thanks for that, by the way, Nintendo. Also, much love to the person on eBay who sold me one of their, like, dozen Bonanza copies for $15 less. I love you so much for that, dude. So when I finally got a bit of a breather with some cash actually in my bank account following my birthday, that's like payday for unemployed people, by the way, you know I hopped on Bonanza as soon as I could, which means in early December because, yeah. I mean, the game's been glazed to high heaven. It's basically this console generation's Mario Odyssey, and I thought it looked good, and as we know, my intuition never leads me wrong. Not ever. So it had to be a fantastic game, and spoilers, it was. It was very good. Very, very, very good. Although, as is implied by the award it's winning tonight, the game didn't quite click for me instantly, and I went through a bit of a learning to love Bonanza character arc. And that's mostly thanks to Bonanza's biggest deviation from, like, any other 3D platformer I've ever played, which is how the game allows you to absolutely demolish environments to your heart's content, with the game allowing you to do things like tunnel through walls, dig deep underground, and even tear pieces of the world off so you can use them however you want. Even during the game's pre-release period, I felt this sort of uncertainty as to whether or not this destruction-based style of gameplay would really be a hit for me, because I felt like it was just opening the game up a little bit too much, and that was definitely how I was feeling when I was taking my first steps into Bonanza, but by the end of my first play session, it was all good. I was having fun, although I wasn't quite wowed how I was expecting to be wowed, if you get what I'm saying. However, the more I kept playing from that point on, the more I began to realize that yes, Bonanza is just as peak as everyone says it is. And I think it's because I just got used to the game's unique style of doing things, and how it also really, really deviates from the funny monkey smash game it looks like on the surface. The deeper you go into the game's various layers, like a Kirby Iceberg. Iceberg 3 coming soon, by the way, guys. Yeah, so stay around for that. Kirby Iceberg 3, The Forgotten Facts. Yeah. Anyways, Bonanza has some awesome layers that take advantage of the game's destruction elements in ways I never could have imagined before experiencing them myself. From how certain types of terrain act in different ways when they come in contact with each other, which leads to a lot of interesting challenges and puzzles, to how the game's malleable environments allow you to get bananas and fossils in almost any way you could imagine, to just everything about the Radiance layer. Call me the #1 Radiance layer glazer because, wow, it's peak. And I don't want to go too deep into it because this ain't a level analysis video, but the way the game plays with mechanics as niche as the world's lighting, which still manages to tie into the game's core idea of destruction by allowing you to make or destroy shadows by engaging with the terrain, literally took my breath away. My jaw was on the floor. It was just an experience, man, and I can say that for multiple other layers too, even if they're not quite on the same level of peak as Radiance was, because each and every layer is unique and interesting in its own way, with the Freezer, Tempest, and Feast layers all being honorable mentions as far as my favorite layer is concerned. And the game's not without its more straightforward platforming challenges too, whether it be in these side challenge rooms that really put you to the test in regards to certain gimmicks, or just certain parts of certain layers that opt for substantially sturdier terrain without sacrificing anything, besides, I guess, the mindless enjoyment that comes from tearing through the world when you got nothing better to do, because yeah, even that's pretty fun. And then there's the Bonanza transformations too. Those are just the cherry on top of an already fun experience. They're not all created equally, of course, but they do give DK so much more utility that just enhances the gameplay experience even further. Bonanza's gameplay is just so excellent and addicting once it clicks, and the highs the game hits made me so glad I stuck with it, even if it did take me a little while to really warm up to its unique way of doing things. And that's just scratching the surface of everything Bonanza does well on top of that. Like how incredible the presentation is, or how tasteful the DK fan service is, or how fun the customization is. I love you, Wokey Kong. Or even how much I got invested into the game's story. Like, it's not a crazy, mind-blowing narrative or anything, but DK and Pauline's dynamic and growth throughout the game is just so endearing. I couldn't help but find myself pulled into it even before the insane finale. But I know I shouldn't be getting into that. I don't want to spoil anything, so I think I'll cut the Bonanza segment here. If you're a DK nut who somehow hasn't played the game yet, though, you do owe yourself to check it out. Promise me that. Donkey Kong Bonanza is just an absolute blast of a game. That's definitely an essential for any Switch 2 owner. It's kind of like it almost should have been like the launch title or something. I think that's kind of a smart idea. That would have been cool if they did that, maybe. And I'm looking forward to doing more Bonanza-ing in the future because I've got a lot of 100% cleanup to do. And just know I am looking forward to every last bit of that. And also, there's DLC. I haven't played it. Does DLC ever go on sale? Can I buy a code secondhand on eBay too? I don't know if I want to pay $20 for this. Our craziest redemption arc award goes to Yoshi's Woolly World. Remember this guy? Last time on PEKACHOW'S Game Awards.
I got this thing as a one-day late Christmas gift, and I was devastated when I found out it just didn't work. It didn't work. I was expecting to have a blast when I slid the disc into my Wii U, and I just give it a second, and oh, would you look who it is? My worst enemy, the disc can't be read channel. It didn't work. It didn't freaking work.
Now, this time on PEKACHOW'S Game Awards. I like Yoshi's Woolly World. In fact, I really like Yoshi's Woolly World. I love it even. Can you really believe we used to have beef just a year ago? Well, I guess I do have beef with one particular copy of the game, but this guy and all the other Yoshi's Woolly Worlds out there, y'all are cool. I love you guys. So all playing aside, yes, I finally got to play my working copy of Yoshi's Woolly World this year, and just as I was anticipating, it's a great game. Just to get the obvious out of the way right now, this game's presentation is absolutely fantastic, and it's for sure one of its strongest attributes, no doubt. Woolly World fully commits to a very artsy aesthetic, mostly using yarn and quilts and things of that nature to make up its environments and characters, and it is glorious. I mean, it's a good feel game. Those are the same guys behind Kirby's Epic Yarn. Of course it was going to be Peak. You've probably heard this a million times, but yes, the yarn aesthetic just makes the whole game feel perfectly cozy and relaxing in the best way possible, and that fact is only amplified by the game's wonderful soundtrack, which just fits the visual presentation perfectly, even when it comes to more intense or ominous tracks you hear sometimes. And the game's every bit of an absolute treat for the eyes and ears, as I was expecting it to be, and then some. But Woolly World isn't all style without substance, oh no. In fact, as someone who's played just about every Yoshi platformer at this point, I can confidently regurgitate the freezing take that this game is like the only other one that can go toe-to-toe with the original Yoshi's Island. Whether it's better or not, I feel like I need to replay the original yet again to be sure. Haven't quite committed to a full replay in a little bit, but despite that, I feel like I can still confidently say that Woolly World is at least able to solo the original game when it comes to its creativity. Because the sheer amount of creative ideas on display all throughout the game stages is something that just cannot be understated. I mean, I found myself in complete awe at various points all throughout the game, because some of the stage concepts and their executions are just that cool and creative, with a lot of them even using the game's crafty theming in clever ways to throw in gimmicks that just fit into Woolly World's Woolly World seamlessly. Like that one ghost house level that has you traversing these scrap pieces that reveal shadowy invisible platforms. Or the curtain riding levels, which are just a pure adrenaline rush and a great change of pace from the usual Yoshi action. Or really any of the stages that have you using Yoshi's eggs or yarn balls as they are now, in neat ways, like using them to fill up hollow enemies or objects, like in that one Chomp Rock level. That one was probably the first time the game really blew me away with its level design, and as you can tell, it was far from the last. While not every single level is pushing the boundaries and blowing your mind, almost all of them are still super fun to play through regardless, especially since the game is dense with collectibles as you'd expect from a Yoshi game. With Woolly World even going above and beyond here with its collectibles by letting you unlock not just additional stages by collecting stuff, but things like new Yoshi patterns and Miiverse stamps too. Very useful in the big 2025, I know, but it's the thought that counts. Anyways, Yoshi's Woolly World is a great, awesome game I love very much, and you all should play it if you've somehow missed it for as long as I have. After what its evil cousin did to me last year, I gotta say, Woolly World really did fix my life, regrow my crops, get me a new house, and come up with a plan to share custody of the kids just as I hoped. I think it falls a tiny bit short of my goat Kirby's Epic Yarn, so I don't know if I'd say it unkicked my nuts exactly, but either way, all is forgiven, Yoshi's Woolly World. Come here and give me a big hug, you beautiful yarn game, you. You really are one of the only reasons to buy a Wii U in the modern day, you know that? Huh, what's that? Oh, right, the 3DS port was a thing. And the point still stands. Oh, I love you, Yoshi's Woolly World. I love you so much. Yoshi's Woolly World. Our forced me to learn how to patch award goes to Klonoa Heroes, which also can't be here right now, unfortunately, but I'm sure we were all familiar with and have played the classic Japanese exclusive Klonoa Game Boy Advanced RPG game, right? Yes, you heard that right. I learned how to patch, and it's all because I really wanted to play one of the, 3 Klonoa games I hadn't played as of, 3 months ago. Doesn't it just warm your heart when a game forces someone to learn a new skill because of a crippling language barrier? Also, I'll let you in on a secret. My trick to patching any ROM is called https://www.marcoblado.com/rompatcher.js/. You can thank me later, my Klonoa Heroes. Anyways, yeah, I played Klonoa Heroes this year, and how was it? Well, I thought it was a pretty good and fun game for the most part, although it definitely does have its issues, but we'll get to those in a moment. Klonoa Heroes is a top-down action RPG that actually takes place in a separate continuity from that of any other Klonoa game, where characters from all the games live mostly more mundane lives together, which is definitely an approach. One I welcome, in fact, because the Klonoa continuity is kinda, sorta a mess. Thanks for that, other GBA games, by the way. This game's structured more like a platformer than an RPG, with each area being divided into levels you move between on an overworld map. And while most of the stages in the game aren't anything too spectacular, mostly as a result of Heroes' most notable level gimmicks being stuff as complex and underused as keys and locked doors or warp tiles. Ooh, how original. There's still usually a good time, because the raw combat of the game is just pretty fun, even if it's not too deep. What can I say? It's just inherently fun whacking enemies around and stuff. Plus, I also like the neat red and blue attack system the game's got going on, which adds a smidge of depth to the combat to make it a bit more interesting. But I feel like the game's strongest gameplay attribute definitely comes down to the nice degree of character customization the game brings to the table. You get to swap between 3 characters in regular gameplay here, with Klonoa specializing in close combat, Guns getting access to a lot of projectile weapons, and Pango, who tosses bombs. Also, he's the MVP. I don't care what anyone says. Those bombs are busted. I probably would have not beaten the game without him by the end. So while each character certainly has their own niche, you can still build them up however you want using the game's customization mechanics, which allow you to take these custom points you get by leveling up to power up certain stats depending on what everyone's got equipped. And there's also a whole slew of different weapons each character gets that change up their method of attack in different ways to keep the combat fresh. It's seriously just super fun messing around with all the different weapons, man. There's even a parasol weapon here that's super janky from my experience, but it was kind of fun when I gave it a quick shot on my playthrough, you know? Maybe it was just for the novelty, but still. And I guess while I'm glazing the game, I might as well shed a bit of light on the story too, without spoiling anything too big, of course. Personally, it didn't quite meet my astronomically high expectations, knowing just how high the bar is from some of the series' platformers in that regard, as well as how super mystery dungeon coded the first chapter felt to me. Honestly, if they wanted to pull a PSMD and keep us in Klonoa's hometown for the first few chapters, I'd definitely be fine with it. Also, to any Serene Village haters who may be watching this, just know that you are weak sauce! But it was still pretty engaging to watch go down, especially with how the game really hammers in its motifs and messages, and I also liked seeing some familiar faces acting in a different context too. The little interactions between any of the main trio were definitely the highlight though. Their clashing personalities really gave them a strong dynamic, and I got pretty invested in their own personal stories and motivations because the game just made me care for them all that much here. So even if the raw story here isn't anything mind-blowing, the characters themselves were just so good and entertaining that it really just hooked me in. As I said, the game's got some flaws for sure, most notably in regards to its absolutely absurd level length by the end of the game, no joke. The last few stages were seriously pushing like 40 to 50 minutes, which is kinda overkill for a game as simplistic as Klonoa Heroes is. There was really no reason for any of these stages that go over like 30 minutes to not have been cut in half or into thirds or something. And I'm not gonna lie, it did leave me feeling pretty burnt out by the time I finished the game, especially since the final boss can heal himself, which was like a slap in the face after going through 3 50-minute levels, but that's neither here nor there. But still, overall, I had a good time with Klonoa Heroes, and I'd say it's definitely worth learning where or how to patch a ROM to experience it if you can't read Japanese. Or at the very least, it's worth giving a look if it looks like something you'd be into. It definitely feels like a bit of an acquired taste kind of game, if you get what I'm saying, though. Just please remember that the game is kind enough to let you save between stage rooms. Save scumming will keep your sanity intact by the end, I promise you. Also, that main theme is a banger. Holy! Our Punny Award goes to Pokemon Legends ZA. Fun fact, during my first few hours of playing, I found a person just hanging around with their Lopunny, and I got to hang around with my own shiny Lopunny soon after. A shiny Mega Lopunny, even. That Punny Award is well-deserved, man. This might be the punniest game of the year. So, Pokemon Legends ZA. It's a game I was super excited for as a Gen 6 truther, and it was also a pretty good game. And yes, it's for more reasons than just the fact that it marks the grand return of the punny. Just like Legends Arceus before it, Legends ZA reinvents your average Pokemon game in a really neat way, although it kind of takes things in the opposite direction of its predecessor, dialing down the expanded catching mechanics a bit, which is admittedly kind of a shame. Although the catching mechanics in ZA aren't bad, even if there is something horribly wrong with the catch rates or formula that I just cannot put my finger on, but I know something is off. But it makes up for that by blessing us with real-time Pokemon battles for the first time ever in a mainline game. It's a pretty big departure from the series norm, but one I was open to and very excited to give a shot. Though much like a certain other game I played this year that also reinvented some wheels, I wasn't really feeling ZA's combat at first, especially since a lot of the earlier battles do feel a little button mashy, so it kind of took me aback when I was expecting a little bit more. But as the game went on, I found myself really getting into the new combat, as I enjoyed seeing how everything from the turn-based games translated into this new setting. I found myself really getting into the central gameplay loop all about battling. I mean, who doesn't love sneaking up on unsuspecting randoms in the battle zone? And I also came to see just how much additional strategy this change in gameplay style really opens up. I mean, like, you can bait attacks now, or use certain parts of the battle arena, as long as it's not just totally flat to your advantage, even if sometimes it's probably not intentional and just a result of jank. But it's usually the fun kind of jank, so it's all good. There's even some more technical stuff, like using the Mega Evolution animation to dodge a move without fail, and speaking of Mega Evolutions, I love how ZA handles them. It's a big glow up, especially to how much of an afterthought they kind of felt like back in X and Y. Yeah, they do feel a little bit more like a raw power-up button without certain things like their abilities in this game. But having them be on a time limit to complement the real-time battle system and making Megastones a lot easier to obtain during the main story too are things that gives the mechanic the PEKACHOW seal of approval here. Plus, ZA's hyper-focus on them is great to see after they've been MIA since Gen 8 started, especially with all the new banger designs this game gave us, like Mega Clefable, Mega Trampa, Mega Phalanx, Mega Delphox, aka the best Mega that doesn't start with a Lop and end with Punny, and also Mega Lopunny's back, huh? This was the kind of comeback Megas deserved, and speaking of comebacks, getting to revisit an expanded Lumio City was awesome too. Like, yeah, I wish we got to explore a bit more of Kalos beyond the city. X and Y are basically prehistoric games now, and Kalos is peak. But I'm still mostly happy with what we've got here. I guess I wish the average city areas were a little more distinct, and I also wish you could still go inside random buildings too. But otherwise, I'm actually a pretty big fan of what was done here. It might not be as sprawling as some past attempts at open areas in Pokemon, but it feels more dense and engaging in exchange, with a lot of verticality thanks to all the rooftop areas to explore, and some good biome diversity for all the wild zones and such. It's just very easy to get distracted and lost exploring the city, and I was still finding new spots even after like 80 plus hours of playtime. It's awesome. And I still haven't even mentioned the writing or story yet, both of which were definitely among the finest in any mainline Pokemon game, with the story itself being good on its own, and even better as a sequel to X and Y for reasons I'm not gonna get into because spoilers. But trust me on this, it's a great sequel companion piece thingy. And then there's the writing. Oh, the writing. It is so incredibly entertaining. Like, shockingly so. Mainline Pokemon writing tends to be pretty straightforward for the most part, but I gotta give it to ZA, and especially its roster of characters, because this bunch right here is probably the finest any mainline Pokemon game has ever had to offer. There's just a ton of strong and eccentric personalities and quirks belonging to everyone here, and it makes, like, any and all character-focused shenanigans a blast to watch. Like whenever Team MZ is having a meeting that usually derails in one way or another, or whenever Jacinth is being Jacinth, or whatever Corbeau is being his wonderful self for that matter. I love this dude, and I also love this dude. Even the side missions are surprisingly entertaining for the little side quests they are, with a lot of goofy scenarios and randoms you meet. So much so to the point where I don't even mind that their gameplay experience, on average, is kinda lacking. I'll take it for the little glimpses we get into the lives of all these random NPCs and Pokemon. It's just the kind of world building I'm so here for, and it makes Lumiose feel lived in despite some things. And that finale, man, oh, that finale! Sorry I even tried that again. I just really like the finale. No spoilers here, anyone, don't worry. Now, Legends EA isn't without its flaws here and there, like the tutorial being a little too long, or certain graphical things looking a little unflattering on top of some other missed opportunities or minor gripes I've mentioned throughout this segment. But even despite its issues, I'm still incredibly satisfied with the game, and all the things it does well. I simply had a blast with ZA, so much so to the point where I was chronically addicted to it, until I got chronically addicted to a different game, and I don't know why I'm trying to keep that game a secret. We all know what it is. But if a game got me that hooked, that bad, it had to have been doing something very, very good. Or very punny, perhaps. Maybe both. And our obligatory DLC award also goes to Pokemon Legends EA again for the Mega Dimension DLC. I know it's not like a full game or anything, but can you tell I've barely played anything this year? Or I guess it's not that desperate of a pick because I feel like I yap about DLC very often in these videos. Maybe I'm just always desperate like that. Huh. Anyways, welcome back on stage, ZA. I gotta evaluate your DLC now, and if I had to sum it up super briefly, I'd say it's flawed for sure. But ultimately, I still had a ton of fun with it, even if that price point is definitely a 2025 Nintendo price point. I mean, I'm definitely gonna get my money's worth out of it, but like, damn, that price is steep. Anyways, Mega Dimension follows heavily in the base game's footsteps by focusing really heavily on a gameplay loop that can really make or break your experience depending on how you feel about it. Even more so than the base game, because it really centers on this loop without any proper new locations to mess around in, or even as much gameplay variety as the base game was offering for that matter, since you're mostly going into these little pocket areas of hyperspace, which is this place that takes little bits and pieces of the main game's map, and thrusts you into areas swarming with Pokemon, including a bunch of newly added ones unavailable in the base game, along with tougher battle zones, side mission areas, and even spots where you can encounter even more new Megas in these very easily cheesable, unbalanced battles, and yes, this strat even works on these two demons. Why did they think making us go up against two Mega Crabominable at once was okay? The gist of the gameplay loop is you're basically just gonna grind these hyperspace distortions until you get enough survey points to fight the next big rogue Mega battle, and personally, I actually got a lot of enjoyment out of that loop, especially once I figured out how to make it the most enjoyable for me, mostly by tracking down distortions with new Pokemon or missions to take on. And I guess on that note of missions, I forgot to mention that the real meat of a lot of the distortions you enter comes down to the randomly chosen selection of tasks you're given as soon as you enter, which gives you a good variety of certain goals to reach towards during your time in each one. Not only for game progression's sake, but because you also get some pretty good berries by busting open the bonus ball that appears in each distortion after all 3 tasks are finished. Which also reminds me of another thing I forgot to mention, being the donuts which you can make from berries that dictate how long you can stay in distortions and how much of a level increase your Pokemon will have on top of a bunch of other different effects if you make them good enough. Which is something I'm still learning, but hey, that's why online Pokemon tools exist. Someone's gotta crack the Switch 2 before Gen 10 comes out, because I don't know what I'm gonna do without my online Pokemon tool resources for crazy complex stuff like this. Still, even as someone who usually just mashes berries together and hopes for the best, I still really dig the decision-making aspect of choosing the right donut for the job before you go into a distortion, and how you're rewarded with better ingredients for clearing them. Plus, the actual act of completing all the tasks inside the distortions is fun too, even if I do find myself reset scumming a lot, admittedly, to scout the areas out and stuff, depending on how much time I've chosen to give myself. Even so, there's still something that just feels good running around and trying to complete missions as efficiently as possible, even if you're going off the cuff. The system's definitely not without its issues. I mean, I already talked about the reset scumming, but there's also some awkward path finding, mostly on one particular map, and I guess the catching missions can be kind of obnoxious sometimes, both due to certain requirements and also the catch rates. Once again, I just know something is up with these. It's just a Quillfish. Should not take this many balls. It's just a Quillfish. But yeah, the gameplay loop is all very fun to me, just like the base game. And likewise, its writing and character work is also stellar, as the DLC gives the cast from the base game even more time to shine. And while the raw story of the DLC is pretty run-of-the-mill for the most part, it's got a strong heart at its core that really comes out during certain moments, and especially the end. Why did everything I play this year have to end on the highest note imaginable? But it's mostly thanks to a lot of the DLC's new characters and how they really grow in to be part of the team by the end. And I feel like I haven't touched on it much, but yes, the newly added Pokemon and the brand new Mega Evolutions are all welcomed additions in my book as well, especially with a lot of the new Megas, because we got another batch of pretty fantastic ones here with a ton of standout designs like the Lysopod, Staraptor, and Lucario Z. It's just too bad that hyperspace leveling is as wonky as it is, so that puts like this huge grinding barrier you need to break through if you want to use any new team members in any DLC content. Unless your name is Golisopod, baby! He was locked in all game after 3/4 of the appropriate grinding. That's why Golisopod is Golisopee! But that's Mega Dimension. It's very fun, if very flawed, as I said before. But it really does feel like the cherry on top of ZA for me, though I do think the price makes it a little hard to recommend unless you really like the base game like I did, or if the new gameplay loop it puts forth looks really interesting or appealing to you. It really is like more ZA with a bit of a twist to spice things up, but I'm cool with that as someone who loved what ZA put forth, and I've only just begun chipping away at the post-game stuff as we speak since I've been so busy over this last month, doing a little bit of video work and playing Kirby. But hey, that means more ZAing in the future for me. Not right now, though. I've got a show to finish. You can take your seat now, ZA. And your 2 awards. I love you. I'll play you later.
This guy's giving a game 2 awards at the Game Awards show.
Oh, come on. At least it didn't earn 9 whole awards in one show. What kind of awards show gives that many awards to one entrant? Our probably technically Game of the Year, but that would be cheating, award goes to Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed World. Love that name. Ah, if it isn't good old Star-Crossed World. Nice talking about you again, Peak. As you may or may not know, I've actually got a whole upwards of an hour-and-a-half long review on Star-Crossed World up for anyone who really wants a review of this awesome little expansion. But for those who haven't seen it, you should. But also have my brief thoughts anyways, because I just can't turn down another opportunity to talk about Peak. And where better to start than with the DLC's biggest draw, which is its dozen new remix stages. And when I call them remixed, I mean that in the best way possible. Yes, it's true that Star-Crossed World does frame its stages as revisits to certain ones from the base game, but Star-Crossed World's approach to remixing them by having you go off the beaten path to take new, fresh routes through the stages more often than not, makes them all feel almost like entirely new ones that do wonders in making Forgotten Land's strong world building even better by letting us see these familiar stages from an entirely new perspective. And that's far from the only thing Star-Crossed World stages have going for them too, since the actual level design is up to the base game's standard for sure, with every single stage being an absolute banger, and it's due in big part to how much Star-Crossed World expands on all sorts of little aspects of Forgotten Land in a plethora of neat and creative ways, like putting stage gimmicks to use in new scenarios, giving Kirby's abilities more time to shine. The way Star-Crossed World continues the Forgotten Land trend of stuffing as many clever collectibles and cool little secrets into its stages as possible, and best of all, the way it really pushes Forgotten Land's signature mouthful mode gimmick to its limits, with so many brilliant sections that require you to use a mouthful to the fullest, or other ones that really test your skills handling other mouthfuls. It's awesome because almost every single mouthful gets a moment to shine, and I haven't even mentioned the new mouthful modes yet. Kirby's new Spring, Sign, and especially Gear Mouth forms get so much time to shine throughout the duration of the DLC, and thanks to how well the game makes use of them and their unique quirks, I'd say that they're all somewhere among my favorites in the game now, because they were just that well used, what can I say? They all bring something new to the table that more than makes up for Star-Crossed World's otherwise pretty reserved new stage elements. Although shoutouts to the Starry Flowers and the Galactal mid-bosses anyways, their respective path-making gimmicks and neat fight definitely add a little bit of extra spice to Star-Crossed World I do appreciate. Even if I was still holding out hope for some proper new enemies or something extra in addition to all this stuff, I like how Star-Crossed World really feels like a display of quality over quantity with its new additions that shows how less can be and do more at the same time, since each new thing feels properly explored by the end of the expansion, while still leaving room in all the new stages for the base game's elements to still be further explored too. So in that sense, it's like the best of both worlds. You're getting classic Forgotten Land in a new context, and totally new Forgotten Land. What's not to love? The new stages are Star-Crossed World's biggest non-spoilery draw for sure, and they certainly deliver, but that's not to discredit how stellar just every little thing about Star-Crossed World really is, of course. Like the music, it's phenomenal. It brings a ton of new composers onto Forgotten Land's OST, and it gives us so many excellent stage theme remixes and a handful of fantastic original works too. And there's also the new EX Gacha figure sets, which are awesome and loaded with a ton of great new ones. The new Ultimate Cup ZEX, which is like Forgotten Land's true final challenge now, and it is a damn good one. The incredible final boss and crazy new world lore revelations I'm not going to go into because spoilers, yada yada yada, I've said this a million times. times. But I had to shout this stuff out somewhere, you know, it's just that good. But there's also tons of minor secrets beyond just the stages, with some even slipping out into base game areas like Waddle Dee Town. And speaking of the base game, technically, Star-Crossed World also comes with 60 FPS Forgotten Land, which is something I never knew I needed as someone who's not really a frame rate freak, but oh, it is so good. It feels like a dream. Even after I took my first nibble of 60 FPS Forgotten Land, I knew there was no going back. Even if this did cost us the hammer glitch, but I guess no game is truly perfect unless your name is like Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, or Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon, so sacrifices had to be made, I guess, even if I still really don't like that. I miss you, Hammer Glitch. Come back! Come back! That aside, Star-Crossed World really is the only Switch 2 edition so far that really feels like a worthwhile paid upgrade in my opinion. So much so that I'd gladly call Mr. Kirby and the almost entirely improved Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed Peak over here my game of the year. If the bulk of the game being from 3 years ago, oh my void, where has the time gone, didn't feel like cheating, because it kinda is. And as much as I love Star-Crossed World, I don't think it on its own is enough to win Game of the Year, because you know, it's an amazing DLC, don't get me wrong. But when you detach it from the base game, I feel like it just can't stack up to a certain other game I played this year that I knew earned that Game of the Year award the moment I started it up. But still, go play Star-Crossed World if you haven't. It's awesome and peak and worth every dollar if you just want some more Forgotten Land. But before you do that and we find out what my favorite Game of the Year is, let's look at what earned this year's Immeasurable Disappointment Award. Is what I'd say if I played enough games this year. Or if one of them was, like, exceptionally awful, but no game I played this year has left me immeasurably disappointed, so I guess this year's Immeasurable Disappointment Award goes to no one. Yay! Great year for gaming. Yay! So without further ado, let's go get things wrapped up here with my totally factual Game of the Year. And you know what? I think I've actually changed my mind on the award. Come up on stage. I see you over there, come on. Come on, Expedition 33. PEKACHOW'S totally legit 2025 Game of the Year award goes to... Eminem's Kart Racing. Okay, so I have a bit of a confession with this one. I am slightly bending the rules with this nomination because I did actually play this game prior to 2025. Although that was probably like a decade ago and I barely touched it. Also, don't ask why I had Eminem's shovelware as a kid. And don't ask why the original copy I had is now broken in half and lost. So I think it counts. I run the show, I make the rules. I also wouldn't have done this if I just played more games this year, but whatever. At least I get to talk about this peakness. While everyone's been eating each other alive over their mascot racer discourse, I've been playing this, and eating better than anyone playing these overpriced games for a fraction of the cost. Eminem's Kart Racing reinvents the racing formula by forcing you to tilt the Wii Remote to move, and it subverts your expectations with a clever control scheme, which incorporates such neat things like the one button not being used to brake or back up, but instead honk a horn. Cool. Anyways, these tracks, some of the finest in racing game history. They all have this perfectly appealing aesthetic that just feels so real to me because I'm sick of these like wacky, colorful environments. I don't want it. I want dark, gritty, poorly lit, sometimes featureless race courses. And I want the chaos to be controlled too. I don't want wacky items. I want coffee cups thrown around the map randomly that give you a boost when you drink them, I think. And also this. It's just peak sound design, am I right, guys? Approaching sound barrier. It never gets old. Approaching sound barrier. Approaching sound barrier. Oh, and the music is incredible. This OST is one of the best soundtracks of all time. And yes, that is Eminem's Kart music you're hearing in the background. And yes, it does actually go kind of hard. Like, seriously, the music's actually not bad. But anyways, it's also got an arcade mode on top of racing and time trials and more racing that lets you drive around and collecting these tiny, hard-to-see coins within a time limit on all the tracks back-to-back, and that's kind of it. Yeah, it's all very fun. Lots of fun, yeah. Eminem's Kart has more voice lines than Sonic Racing Cross World, more straightaways than Mario Kart World, more content than... Look a nut! That's a quote from Eminem's Kart, guys. That's an Eminem's Kart quote. Yeah, okay. The attempt to be subversive failed. We all know what my Game of the Year is. This was a flaw, man. I can't believe I've pretended to guess up shovelware 2 separate times, and neither time has anyone taken the bait. I wonder why. But anyways, no more beating around the bush. We all know the $170+ racing game I bought this year that won my heart, and I'm not going to call it out now because that's for the award call, which we'll get to in a second. But first, if you all want to hear me talk about my other childhood M&M's game that I barely remember playing in the next PEKACHOW'S Game Awards, the 2026 Game Awards, then be sure to like this video because when we get to 2 likes, I will buy it right away. This is a promise too, I swear on my life. Also, don't ask me where the old copy is because I have no idea. And also don't ask me if it's broken in half because it also probably is. And finally, for real this time, to the surprise of absolutely no one, PEKACHOW'S actual 2025 Game of the Year award goes to what else but the one, the only, I'm not gonna stall it anymore, you already know what it is, it's Kirby Air Riders. Of course it's Kirby Air Riders, it's Peak! Well, take a shot if you saw this one coming. Now this is usually the part where I'd make some witty comment about how every single one of these Game Awards videos seems to end in like the most predictable, expected way possible, but like, it's Kirby Air Riders. Y'all only saw this one coming because we all know it's the peakest game that came out all year. And also maybe because I'm a little bit of a Kirby person. And probably also this too if I'm on your Switch friends list. Can you tell that I love this game? Anyways, as I'm sure we all know / could have guessed, I'm gonna be giving Air Riders its own whole review very, very soon, so I don't want to dive too deep into every little aspect of the game here because that's for my incredibly lengthy but also reasonably lengthy review video, but it wouldn't be fair to just end the video like that on you all, so here are my brief thoughts on Kirby Air Riders and why I think it's my game of the year without a doubt. For starters, it's an Air Ride sequel. It is the Air Ride sequel. I feel like I haven't been too vocal about it on the channel yet, but I adore Kirby Air Ride. Just a few months ago, it was probably like my favorite racing game of all time because there was no Air Riders. And the reason why Air Ride is my favorite racing game is because it's not actually a racing game at all. It's a vehicle party action game. You catch my drift. You've got your more action-focused racing, you got your fun but chaotic and messy party mode, and then there's City Trial. We all know and love City Trial. And as someone who wanted an Air Ride sequel ever since I played the original a few years back for the first time, Air Riders delivered just by keeping all that stuff intact but giving it this modern polish by adding and tweaking a ton of additions into the game. Just off the top of my head, you can properly reverse now, drop copy abilities, trail behind other players' star trails to catch up to them if you fall behind, swap machines and City Trials at the press of a button. Just in general, the controls feel immaculate, and best of all, the balancing is surprisingly on point given how wacky the balancing of the original game was looking back. Some overly busted machines have been nerfed a little bit, but the nerfing is never taken to a fatal degree. Usually. And the buffs, oh the buffs. There are so many machines and even copy abilities that were nearly useless 20 years ago that are genuinely great now. Like if I went back in time to tell an Air Rider, or I guess an original Air Ride player, that I unironically made the Formula Star in their anticipated Air Ride sequel, they'd probably die on the spot, but it's seriously good now. Be careful who you call ugly in middle school because they might wind up being the best machine in the game one day, you know? Oh, and did I say proper balancing was the best addition? Well, I lied, because it's obviously the rider system, which gives us access to a bunch of playable characters that almost perfectly represent Kirby's rich history and huge cast of wonderful characters who not only vary in stats, but special moves and even passive effects sometimes too. This fact, combined with the huge variety of distinct machines, including a ton of new ones, opens up nigh endless possibilities of unique combinations which I've had a ton of fun playing around with, and I've barely scratched the surface of testing out every possible one. Air Riders is a game that really lets you play how you want to play. If you want to run a super specialized combo, or use a rider with a special or something that can make up for a machine's weakness. Fun fact, this is why Formula Rick is objectively, subjectively the best combo in the game. That is my main. That is my... Or even be a prisoner of the meta and run Noir DDD Wagon Star. How you play is up to you, and it makes finding a combination that clicks with you feel all the more special. The degree of player expression it allows is simply fantastic in my book, and the glow-ups to the modes. Oh, the glow-ups to the modes. Back in the original, I always felt like I appreciated Air Ride a little more than most, but with the modern sheen of Air Riders, I feel like it's really started to get the love it deserves because, yeah, it's undeniably peak here. Not only do we get a ton of crazy, creative, and stunning new tracks that feel just like Air Ride courses if they were made in the big 2025, but we've even got all 9 of the original GameCube tracks back for better or worse. And when you take this sizable track number and just let players race around with the game's great mechanics, you've got yourself the funnest racing mode in any game I've ever played. Like seriously, it's so good. The rush of coming out on top during a super close race is just unlike anything I've ever felt before, and it still isn't old after hundreds of... I don't want to say thousands yet, but you never know. But I've done a lot of races and it still hits. I love air ride. And of course, I can't forget about City Trial. We've got an awesome new map in Skya with a ton of cool locations and background details, a massive amount of maximum players, which gives this mode the perfect sprinkle of chaos that I never knew it needed until I tried it, some tweaks to the stadium system to make matches a tad less RNG dependent, and that's just barely getting into it. I could go off about City Trial forever, but it's really something you've got to experience or watch or listen to that cool YouTube person PEKACHOW ramble about in their upcoming Kirby Air Riders review to truly get. Just know it's peak with a capital P, and I will never ever ever get tired of this new City Trial. I'll be playing this thing on my deathbed after like 4,000 hours of playtime throughout my life, and I'll still be having a blast. And how could I forget about Road Trip, the newly added story mode? It's the one I'm the most hesitant to go too into here because you know me, I try to keep these Game Awards videos squeaky clean of spoilers. Isn't that right, Mr. Spoiler Screen Man? But what it does is it combines all three of the big made modes into, oh my god, I forgot Top Ride. I like Top Ride. It's fun. It's a little hard to follow sometimes because it gets a little too chaotic sometimes, but it's fun. I like how you can use whatever machine you want now, too. It's fun, as long as you're not playing ranked. But back to Road Trip. It takes these modes and puts bits and pieces of them into these quick challenges you take on to power up and get stronger as you go along your playthrough while you're collecting new machines and stuff. It's a super fun gameplay loop. And I love the story too, for that matter, but that's for the review, I suppose. Oh, and the countless cameos from all sorts of characters and enemies you meet along the way, some of which are super deep cuts, by the way, made the whole journey feel like a constant stream of dopamine hits as a crazy Kirby nut. It's so awesome, man. It's been 25 years. 25 long years since I saw you last. Gavar, never leave us again. And those are just the big 4 modes. I haven't even gotten into the checklist, which is back and bigger than ever and stuffs the game with all sorts of unlockables and single-player stuff. The fantastic customization between the silly cosmetic hats and the surprisingly in-depth My Machine mode. The sheer amount of options between accessibility things and match settings that let you play however you want. Galactic Nova 99 laps, anybody? The Gummies mode, which is just cute fun for all of us wannabe gum millionaires. But don't worry, everyone, we'll make it one of these days. And then there's all the online modes, which is like the seasoning on top of everything else. You can play with friends in paddocks, you can climb ranked versions of each of the game's main modes. Heck, there's even a whole year's worth of online events we're going through right now that have had a surprising amount of effort put into them. Like, seriously, did I ever say that this game was just full of charm and sheer dev passion that I absolutely love? I could just go on and on and on about this game forever because it's just so big and has so much to offer, and trust me, I will get to doing that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it's getting pretty late and I'm pretty sleepy, though. Before I close this presentation off, I'll do my usual ending speech reflection thingy. Though just like last year, I want to wrap up my discussion on my game of the year by tying it in there too, because yeah, Air Riders heavily plays into how my year went and how I'm feeling about the future. Once again, I don't want to turn this into PEKACHOW'S Trauma Dump Awards, so I'll keep some things kinda vague and brief. But for like the first 3/4 of the year, I was in the trenches, man. I don't remember exactly how clear I made this in my last Game Awards, but those last 2 months of 2024 were super bad times for me, even while I was on that super mystery dungeon stuff that was carrying the rest of that year for me. Also, I'm back on it in full force now, and it feels amazing. Trust me, if you need a nice dose of hope and happiness in your life, you should play Super Mystery Dungeon, replay Super Mystery Dungeon, or think about Super Mystery Dungeon. It works every time. And since I was burnt out on channel stuff thanks to the 64 video grind, and I graduated high school during that time too, any congratses in the comments would be appreciated. That was not public knowledge before now, which left me kinda lost as to where to go next. I just didn't do anything. I had streaks of totally unproductive days, times where I wondered if I even had it in me to make anything for the channel anymore. And while I'll admit Starcrossed World did push me into the better direction by forcing me to get up and make a video and play the new Kirby game, Air Riders is what really relit my spark, and I'm not even joking, both because Air Riders and the pre-release hype and the demos and everything really helped me reintegrate back into the Kirby fandom after I felt like my super long hiatus kind of left me a bit, washed up, we'll say. But most importantly, this game reminded me of what truly matters, and really the main reason why the greater part of this channel is even a thing in the first place, and that is you all watching this right now. My oomfies. Just in the last month and like somewhere between 10 and 20 days, I think, I've made so many unforgettable memories with so many of you I know are watching this on Air Riders. From sharing unforgettable matches together, to helping some of you out with your checklists, to playing on streams with some of you, and by extension that means we've also engaged in paddock shenanigans, hide and seek matches, even City Trial Mafia roleplay. Yes, that actually did happen. And this is proof that Air Riders isn't just another Kirby game, but it's a game that's brought the whole community together. And it just so happened to release at the perfect time for me to reconnect with the fan base and a lot of good friends within it. Meet a ton of new oomfies, mostly through the streams I partook in and stuff, who I'm glad to have along for the ride now. Heck, even outside of Air Riders, I've had my fair share of times where I would just hit it off with someone because we were chatting for one reason or another. And now we're besties. They're A-list oomphs. They're on the oomph squad even. And I'm not gonna single anyone in any camp out, but you all know who you are, and I think you're awesome. And that goes out to all my audience members as well, whether I know you on a deeper level or not, because knowing that so many of you stuck by me and the channel, even after that really bad hiatus and all the video delays, this was a very unproductive year, means everything to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all for waiting and being there, and thank you to Air Riders for being so peak too. This year was admittedly not very good, but you all helped me end things off on a high note, and I'm going to keep riding that as long as I can, because I'm back, I'm better than ever, and I love y'all so much for that. And that's it for this year's PEKACHOW'S Game Awards, or maybe the real Game Awards this year for the friends we made along the way this time, huh? Either way, I'm stoked to see what 2026 has in store for me, because I'm gonna make it as good as I can if the world just can't fix itself. And I hope I'll be able to make it a little better for all my oomfies and audience members by, actually putting stuff out next year. Obviously, the Air Riders review and the next Kirby Iceberg video are my top priorities, and I don't want to go around making too many promises because I've got a life situation to focus on cleaning up too, you know. But if I can at least get that year overdue Gimmick 2 video and some other fourth thing out as well, I think that will suffice, but we'll see. And I'm hoping to see you all there for those too. But anyways, if you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. And if you want more content like this, then be sure to subscribe. Also, I've got a Twitter and a Blue Sky. The links are in the description. So thank you all for tuning in once again to yet another installment of PEKACHOW'S Game Awards. And with all that said, have a happy new year, everyone. I love y'all once again. And PEKACHOW.